After a lot of marking, it's finally time to quilt these concentric circles. Come join me.
Hey guys, welcome back to Frances Quilts. Well, yesterday I spent about 2 hours quilting on this lovely piece. And I know you're looking at it and saying, but Frances, there's no quilting on here. That's because after I spent 2 hours quilting it, I spent 3 hours ripping it all out again. Let me tell you the story. When I first started with this, I knew I was going to put concentric circles coming around here like this. I marked it at 1 inch and then decided I was going to split that difference and not mark the line, but just quilt inside those two lines. Well, once I had done that, I decided I needed to go ahead and mark the entire quilt. That was last Friday's video. Check it out if you haven't had a chance to look at it. It's an easy way to mark all these circles. Now, I had used a wool batting on this piece. And you know, my problem with wool is it's fairly thick, it has a lot of loft to it, and sometimes those layers still can shift, and I was just really concerned that it was going to shift as I was quilting along. But I thought, I bet it'll be okay. So now I thought, I'm ready to quilt, and I started quilting the circles. I would quilt 2 or 3 on here, and then I come up here and I do 2 or 3 on here, just so I could see how these lines were going to intersect with each other. So after 2+ hours of quilting, I stopped and had a really good look at it. And you know what? About half the places where those lines crossed each other, I had a little bitty tuck there. This was not going to work. So that's when I pulled it all apart. I have now rebasted it using a polyester batting. It's not going to have the same loft, but at this stage, I'm okay with that. I just want it to be quilted. So as I was having my shower this morning, I started to think about my plan of using all these different colors. And I think it would be fun in here, but I know that when I get to these lines, I'm going to be crossing over one color of thread with another color of thread, and I just don't think that's going to look great. I've debated off and on about switching to just a gray thread and quilting the whole thing in gray thread, and I've decided after all of this, I've started over several times, I'm going to go back to what I think might be best. Let's hope that works. So today we're going to start quilting, and I'm going to start quilting in the center. If you remember from last week, I put a circle in the center here that I'm going to quilt in some design similar to this, but I didn't measure it. I said, oh, it looks like it should go here. Well, guess what? It doesn't. So my center of the circle I put on there is right here. When I measured it, the center should be down here. So I'm going to make that change and start in that center circle and then just start quilting. Okay, you see a lot of blue lines on here. We're going to work to get rid of those as quickly as we can. This was the original circle that I had drawn when I hadn't measured it. It is obviously in the wrong place. This is the center, that point that I want to be working from. And you see I have drawn 2 perpendicular lines here and here. And I'm going to use those to get my circle set in place. I'm using my nested circles. I did do a video a few weeks back about using these, and I will link that in the notes below. If you look on these, there are some marks right here and directly across from it right here, and then up here and down here. And those will give me a way to ensure that my circle is in the right positioning. So if I come under, let's get this under here, and ready to go. If I take this line, this mark right here, and I line it up with this line, and I take this mark and line it up with that line right there, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take this mark and I'm going to line it up with this line going across, and the same thing over here with this one. So if I have all 4 of those lined up, which I do, I should be able to quilt inside here and have the circle be centered exactly where I want it to be. Again, I'm going to take some very small stitches just to begin with to lock those in place.
All right, let me give you the bottom line here. I started out trying to use a curved ruler just to help my lines be a little bit straighter, but I felt like all I was doing was repositioning the ruler and repositioning the quilt so that I could see what I was doing. I realized that I was not going to be able to quilt backwards, and I just felt like using the ruler was going to be more trouble than it was worth. So I decided just to trust myself and my free motion quilting and just follow those lines freehand, and it worked. Well, after a day and a bit of quilting, this quilt is finished. I did all of the concentric circles. I'm so glad I switched to the gray thread because it meant I could just kind of quilt willy-nilly. I didn't have to stay in one area. If I came along here and I found a place that I wanted to do, come down here, I could do that. It made the quilting so much easier to have switched to just one color of thread. So after the circles, I put a minimal amount of straight line quilting in the stars because I kind of want them to puff a little bit more. And to finish off this wonderful quilt, I added a flanged binding. These are so easy to do. My friend Rosie kept saying, "Frances, they're easy." And I kept saying, "Rosie, you're crazy." Well, you know what? She was right. They're very easy to do. I'm going to be putting together a tutorial for how to do that in the next week or so. So keep watching the channel because you don't want to miss it. It's easy and it adds so much to your quilts. Well, guys, I have to tell you, I'm glad that this one is finished. It has not been particularly easy. There's been a lot of little things that I've had to learn and try different, but I guess that's what makes a quilt fun to do, is just pushing yourself a little bit more than you think you can do. So as we end, thank you so much for joining me here today, and as always, I look forward to seeing you next time on Frances Quilts. Remember, if you like what you've seen, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please check out my website and daily blog at francesquilts.com, and I can be found on Facebook and Instagram at Frances Quilts. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope to see you again soon.